Welcome to the Scale Model Podcast special series. We are doing an in-depth report building a resin transformable model, and this one in particular is the 1-100 Retpu VF19A Excalibur Valkyrie. So what we'd like to do with this special series is go over some of the basics of building a resin model kit, some tips and tricks, hopefully some parts of the process that people have not seen. And then also, this is quite a rare kit, and the fact that it's transformable is really interesting because it's kind of a very unique sample. I have Stuart here with me to help with the process.
I'm going to be occasionally sitting down, occasionally behind the camera.
Yes.
Yeah, this thing, I know when you unpacked it originally, we've already shot an unpacking video in part one.
Yes.
This thing is fascinating for a kit, the way it transforms.
Yeah.
And
it's incredible. It's actually engineered very in such a delicate and ingenious way. Mm-hmm. So the actual subject was supposed to be a variable fighter, so it would be a fighter craft, and then it would transform into a sort of an intermediate mode with its legs out, and then into a sort of robot mecha form.
Wasn't that mode called Gerwalk or something?
Yeah, Gerwalk. The Gerwalk's actually an acronym, but I can't remember.
That's fine. I get it. It'll be good for folks like me who remember watching Robotech and stuff like that as a kid, but didn't know all the finer details.
So you have your Batroid and Gerwalk, and then a fighter mode, right?
And that's what these images you have here.
Yes.
So I'm just zooming in here to show the fighter mode.
Yes.
And then we've got the, what did you call that?
The Gerwalk.
The Gerwalk mode.
I'll look it up for next.
And then you'll look it up, and then the full-on
Batroid.
Looking good. I love the color scheme too.
Yeah. So these images have come from Macross fandom wiki.
Okay.
And this particular version, there's a lot of versions of the VF19, and this is it was a special next generation variable fighter. And this is a production type, and these are the colors that have been chosen for this. And I believe that's kind of what they intended, because believe it or not, this resin here was dyed and at the time of casting, so it was sort of cast in color.
Because I know before we started, when we went to air, I thought it was painted.
Yeah, it has not been painted. Now, it has been assembled a little bit. We're going to talk about that process.
Okay.
And so this is actually a commission build for me. Mm-hmm. And so that the customer has he had put it together a little bit and done some of the work, and we're gonna work with that and complete it for him. So a little bit about the subject again. So this was like a next generation variable fighter. It was developed after Space War 1, which is the Macross TV series. And this particular design comes from a video game, which is kind of a common thing in anime and science fiction, that parts of the stories are told in an animation, a movie, a video game, a comic, etc., etc.
Gotta have the license, gotta have the IP.
Exactly, that's right. Well, I guess it's not that unique to Japanese stuff or anything. So, and this is the Excalibur version. So it's been reported that the designer of a lot of the Macross mecha, Shoji Kawamori, he had the fighter's airframe reference the real-life Su-22 flanker,
right,
and also the experimental Grumman X-29.
Yes, which had the reverse-facing wings.
Like swept wings, right? Mm-hmm. So, right, swept wings? Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, so
they're swept forward instead of aft.
Yes, exactly. So, and the name Excalibur is supposed to reference the holy sword of King Arthur. So
very cool.
It's kind of just a neat thing, and I've known we've discussed this a little bit in the regular podcast.
Yes, we have.
How science fiction often references a lot of real life, inspiration from real life vehicles or things that were happening at the time of design. Yeah, so this was a mass production version. It was introduced to phase out the prior VF11s, which is a Thunderbolt, which I know you've pointed out and said you kind of enjoyed those design.
I did.
And those had been in operation since 2040. So if you get a sense of the time frame.
So what's the time frame on this, roughly?
Oh, boy.
I know I was going to put you on the spot there.
No, I don't know when that game is supposed to have taken place.
So it's like late 21st century, probably.
Yeah, I would think.
All right.
I would think that's correct.
Worst comes to worst, we'll
a lot of info
correct it. Yeah,
there's a ton of info on this.
I've been to that site, and it's amazing the amount of stuff. Again, it's like, just like Star Wars and Star Trek fans have their worlds, and it's it's very similar.
Oh, here you go.
Sort of things.
Okay, here you asked about a time frame.
I asked about a time frame.
So the VF19, the sort of original airframe, was originally intended as a first strike weapon for use against non-cultured Zentradi. So that by that point there had been peaceful aliens integrated with humankind, but then there were
non-cultured.
There were
or the peaceful ones of the culture.
Yeah, that's right. Then there were other ones who were sort of they were like a clone army of like warriors, so they didn't really.
So it wasn't the fact that the culture ones enjoyed opera and fine dining. Sorry, that's a bad joke. All right.
So, but once in Macross, there's a lot of like space colonization. They send off a lot of ships in different places to colonize, and I believe the Earth was destroyed at the end of Space War 1.
That's right.
They like melted it.
Got bombed and
barraged it to
death, and a lot of molten glass, I think.
So a lot of the series take place on these massive motherships that have like cities inside them, and they've gone off in different directions to colonize different planets and whatnot. So yes, they're used against the non-cultured Zentradis, who were very violent and aggressive, and they were still engaged in hostilities across the galaxy with the Supervision Army, which is like another race of aliens. I think who maybe created the Clone Army.
Now, just correct me if I'm wrong, but the Zentradi were actually quite large in size.
Yes, they're huge.
That's why they designed some of these vehicles to be roughly the same size as
to combat that particular enemy.
Right.
Yeah. And with the variable fighter, the UN forces could directly assault and confuse the Zentradi forces by exposing them to culture through music, and that's part of like the min-main of the song Idol.
Yeah, the whole thing, how they managed to justify that.
Yeah, and now the VF19 custom and Basar Oneki, his character from Macross 7 in particular, played a much larger role in this craft during the Proto-Devlin War in 2045. So that's kind of a bit of a
21st century.
A time reference for that.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's and actually, I gotta say, I really enjoyed Macross 7, and this is kind of that era. It's kind of I'd like to watch it again because it's kind of like.
It sounds like one I'm going to have to watch, definitely, because I've only ever watched the original, the ones that most people in North America have seen, the 3 series into one.
Mm-hmm. So of the variants, there's got to be about 6 or 7 variants here.
Makes sense.
The VF19A was the first regular production version with the canard forward wings. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. So, and we'll post the links to that if everyone really wants to delve deep into Macross stuff. There's a huge technical aspect. You can find out about like the power plant.
Anthony happened to read them. He got sucked in so much he went to Japan.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, the design, the power plant, flying control.
Yeah, they're really into it. Like they kind of justified. Yeah, they were kind of went, well, this is how this would fit in here.
Yeah, and they've done. Even Gundam is like that.
Mm-hmm.
All the really good series have that kind of deep level of detail that makes it
true
really rich,
fandom. And this is what I like.
Yeah.
I like if they do the engineering behind it.
Yes.
Yeah. I hate when shows, and I always remember, and I've quoted this before. We're not going to go off topic too much, but Star Trek 5.
Yes.
That was the one Shatner directed, and the one that most people think really sucked. At least I did. So. But they had a scene where they're going up into the elevator turbo shaft of the Enterprise.
Yes.
And they're starting to go past like deck 85, deck 86.
Oh,
and it's like there's only 26 decks on
yes.
it. All true ship geeks know that. Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff that drives
Star Trek is another series that really builds
normally
a lot
they
of the
really
world.
do.
Yeah,
exactly.
And the engineering, the technology, the sort of political relationships that make it a really rich, kind of believable experience.
Well, even Star Wars now, they've got a lot of the technical stuff behind that. And they explain how things are done, and it's really cool. So okay.
So the next thing we're going to talk about is just looking at the parts and kind of discussing them a little bit.
Right.
And so again, this is I gotta say, this is gonna be a real challenge.
Oh, you're gonna have fun. But as we pointed out, you recently completed another kit you thought was going to be an absolute dog.
Yes.
Your APC from Aliens.
Yes, and that was a tough kit.
You're getting a lot of compliments on it.
Yes,
so
thank you.
We are very confident in you.
I gotta make this happen.
All right,
has to happen.
Go for it, my friend. I'm gonna direct the camera as you go forward.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll talk a little bit about the sub-assemblies here and kind of looking at the transformation a bit. And then after that, we'll have a look at the manual because that's its own beast.
Okay.
But yeah, some interesting things here. So this kit was sort of, I guess, a multimedia kit. And it might be hard. I'll try and point out, but like some of these are actually put together with screws.
Okay.
So they're resin cast pieces.
Yep. Okay.
And I'm not sure if this might be an ABS piece, like this arm joint.
Yep.
But they've included little hinges, tiny, like I guess watchmaker level
screws are really
scale
tiny,
to get it to be able to transform and kind of have that mobility and still be a model kit, but very delicate.
I think what we'll do is we'll also take some pictures because when we post this, we'll have an attached photo gallery.
Yeah.
So we'll take some pictures after we're done filming.
But I've been looking at the wing section here.
Yeah.
I know it's folded up, but it's quite delicate. It's very thin, like that. That's the trailing edge, right?
Wow.
So that's amazing. That detail, like sometimes you get the trailing edge on a plastic styrene kit.
You can use that to shave.
Yeah, it's sharp. So, and I gotta say, this isn't actually a mid-90s kit.
Wow.
So it's not even up to date.
You're saying the newer ones are even...
I don't know if there's newer ones like they're making this, but
this is pretty amazing.
Yeah. So here we have like some hinged parts to accommodate the transformation process, and then under here is actually opening doors for this would be the nose landing gear.
Yeah.
And I'll just flip that open really, really gently.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be a little bit of work to kind of.
Oh, that's pretty cool.
And then it folds up. Now this piece actually, in this Batroid form, was supposed to be glued onto here.
Right.
And kind of concealing these universal ball joints, right, for the legs. So we're going to have to, there's going to be some issues there, like some challenges kind of securing these pieces, and maybe...
I'm just zooming into the ball joint here.
Yeah. So have a look at these. There's been some... They come apart a little bit, so I'm gonna have to work on securing them.
Right.
And really, even if you're building a static resin kit, connecting the pieces, we're going to talk about this in detail, but with magnets or pins, pinning things is really critical. You can't just slap some glue on and kind of call it a day like you would with a traditional polystyrene kit. So we'll look at those techniques, and then maybe even some replacement parts.
Well, and the whole idea with I know from building my first Gundam kit, the Shurcam.
Oh, that was the oh goodness, I can't remember his name right now.
But yeah, the use of the ball joints, I've read about it. Yeah, and it's genius the way. Yeah, it makes sense. The engineering behind it is really good. And
the material, see that Bondi kit, and like many Bondi kits that are current and common, that would be a polystyrene body pieces, right, or shells, right, and then the joints are made of PVC.
PVC, a different material.
And then I think even that's how it was for many years. So they're hard to paint the PVC, but there are ways around it. But again, a challenge.
Most of the time, at least the one I had, the PVC was all internal.
Yeah,
it was all joints.
You can't see it
so
as well.
See it,
and they often tried to make them sort of color correct for builders who weren't going to paint them.
Yeah, a lot of people, and we've talked about that in the past.
Yeah.
So okay.
So just looking a bit more, I'll try and keep my hands out of the way, but you see the leg. Well. The leg unit here, there's these, so let's see here, this would be like the gear door, right? We'll have to figure out how to get that back on there. And so the feet would be the thrusters, right? Or I guess for like thrust factoring, and then inside would be your power plant, right? And that's sort of the general design. So this is supposed to fold up and...
With the magic fuel supply.
Well, I was... They had fission reactors in them.
It's a little reactor.
Yeah,
it's
nuclear powered,
which negated the need for fuel tanks, which meant they could put more bits in for the transforming bits.
Yes,
see, that's where I talk about where they explained.
Yeah,
where you look at, well, how could they fit all that in? Where would it have the fuel? Or where would it, by making it a nuclear powered?
Well, so it's interesting if you do take up all the space inside with like mechanisms for for transforming them. And there's been we'll have to bust them out. There's some really cool like the internal diagrams.
I've seen cutout. Well, that's what I'm saying. I've seen the earlier models, the VF1s or whatever.
And they weren't that small either.
Yeah, no,
compared to other.
They're size of an F14 because that's what the original. That's what the original.
They're smaller than the F14.
Slightly, but still.
No, quite a bit. I'll show you the comparison. So now the styling was definitely, I believe it was kind of modeled after an F14. We're talking about the original VF1.
Yeah.
So the F14 and I think an F15.
Yeah, they basically
kind of took the
design, off the tail planes.
Yeah.
Like at the back, the horizontal stabilizers.
Yes, and put them
up. The vertical ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah.
So there are some clear parts. So this would be like the anti-collision lights on the wings when it's in the fighter mode. So you'd be referencing. I think over here would be the idea.
Just stay there for a second.
Yeah.
There you go. Okay. Yep.
So your anti-collision lights, right? And so there'll be some work there to try and get them to fit in, but the fit generally is pretty good on this thing.
I know it's one thing you were mentioning off camera earlier. You were very impressed with the fit.
Yeah, it's quite a nice kit, and this kit does look to be cast very well.
Right.
And we're going to talk about that because it's not a little bit the Wild West out there. When you buy kits, sometimes they're just a disaster.
Well, that's what you've told me. Well, you say it's a true cottage industry.
Yes, and then sometimes you get really just feats of engineering and good casting practices. You get a nice buildable kit. Right. Some other interesting things of note. I'm just looking around, so you can see here. We'll do our best.
Just zooming into your leg. Yeah.
This is a bit of like almost flash or kind of like a mark that would have to be something we're going to clean off.
Right.
You can see a little bit of maybe that's where the part was trimmed off. So from the pour stub, that kind of thing, we're going to deal with that stuff. And here's another. So this is just the upper leg, but here, this line, if you can see, that is sort of a mold, like an issue, like a mold defect or something on the surface that we're gonna work away and smooth down.
Okay.
So that kind of thing. But other than that, this is a pretty nice looking kit in terms of crisp detail. And I'll try and show even some more of the internal details here. So how they managed to make this. So I just took off this sort of the intake cover, right?
I can see another screw there, a little micro screw.
Yeah, so a screw that holds on the wing, right? And then down here they have a ball joint that's...
Oh, yeah.
So it's a ball joint and how that fits in there. So we're going to make sure it's all fastened. It's a very floppy kit. And that to me is the sort of the biggest challenge on this is that it's going to be it's very delicate. We got to treat it very delicately.
Because, one would wonder how you're going to lock it into various modes.
And I think what we're going to do is we're going to add strategically placed magnets and pins. Hopefully that's the plan to get it to have...
That would be neat.
But I think no matter what happens, this is still going to be very sort of touchy kit.
Yeah, it's the kind of thing you set up and then you leave it.
Yes, and it was discussed from the owner of the kit. He said he really wants to see it in the fighter mode.
In the fighter mode?
So he sort of indicated that, hey, if you're not comfortable getting pictures in all three modes, just leave it in the fighter.
Well, we'll try and get pictures in all three.
Yeah, so it's quite interesting even. So there's another ball, this like a universal ball joint, right? Up here, where it connects to sort of the torso.
Right.
And then it's supposed to flip around to get into the different modes. So, and that plastic kind of looks like an ABS to me, but I'm not 100% sure.
It's kind of all the same color there, yeah.
But this, like that's sort of when you pour resin, a lot of the common brands, it comes out this yellow color, and I'm sure many builders have seen that before. Right. And then this is like the extra step where they add a bit of dye, like special dye into it, right as you're mixing it. And you can also get clear resin. You can make it black. You can make it green. You just drop in some dots.
Well, isn't that what like Bandai's doing that in some of their kits now for injected molded?
Yes.
They're giving multicolored sprues even within a single part.
So look, yes, yeah. And you know what? They pioneered that technique in 1990.
Yeah, because I know one of our local anime stores, Neo Tokyo. He carries the Bandai Star Wars kit, and
it has that.
He showed me one of the TIE fighters in the solar panel. 2 colors right from the get-go.
The ion panel, right?
Yeah, the ion solar panel. Whatever. Twin ion engines. That's why they call it
Yes,
TIE.
yeah, that's right.
What TIE stands for.
So check out this mechanism here for the wing to swing out. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Like that's kind of
It
nuts.
goes internal, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
Well, it does kind of remind me a little bit like, some of the earlier kids when I was a kid of the F-14.
Yes.
And, they had little simple mechanisms, but certainly nothing like that.
Like this is really quite.
Yeah, the engineering behind it is fascinating.
Fascinating.
And that's what
So
really
this goes over
fascinates
here.
me about, again, because I'm always interested in the industry side, the engineering behind it just fascinates
Yeah, like
me.
who made this?
Yeah. A freaking genius.
Yeah, it's intense.
All
like
right.
these guys really loved Macross.
Cool.
Probably more than me.
Is that possible?
Yes.
Probably. Yeah, I've seen some people's collections online.
I'm not gonna push that too much, but you can see.
You have to remember you're a married man.
Yes. So this was meant to be the swept forward wing, and you can see now we're getting into part of the fuselage.
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Yeah, so it's going to be, now we have decals for this. It does come with an armament, and it was like a gun pod that would be
I'll just zoom in there.
underslung on the bottom of the carriage.
Yep, and then when it went into the full robot mode, he'd kick ass.
Now this kit, what they did was they molded this is actually pretty sharp too. They molded a hand to the trigger,
Makes
and then
sense, yeah.
you're meant to
Makes sense, yeah.
Yeah,
Makes
and I think you're meant to not glue it so you could mount it. But I wonder if it was not. There's probably not a mount point for when it's in the fighter mode that you would have.
Or it's just they realized it would have been too complicated.
It's too much.
Engineering.
Yeah. But on like a typical Hasegawa kit or Bandai kit, you can mount the gun pods under the Valkyries. It's a very common design, and then it came with two sort of regular closed-fisted manipulators.
Cool.
They're really not hands; they call them manipulators, right? So you can see
to manipulate the throat out of a bad guy.
Or work a gun. But there you can see.
I can see
they're
that.
pretty. They're actually nicely detailed.
Zoomed up in there.
And that was one of the problem with mecha kits in general in the 80s and 90s, that the hands were like these big hulking blobs of plastic. They never seemed to sculpt good hands.
Right.
And they needed to be able to accommodate like a beam saber or a weapon of some sort. So just I'm sure they're better now. But with modern kits, they've come a long way. But
cool.
So there's a lot going on here. It's going to be very interesting.
Cool.
And then, we're going to get the instruction manual ready. And we'll be right back.
Why don't you just quickly show us the decals?
Yes.
Talk about the decals, and then
the decal sheet
it's around here somewhere.
Right here.
See, I knew you had it around. You were protecting it. So let's just have a quick peek at the decals.
I'm going to put them right here.
This is why I'm here to remind him of things.
Yes.
Okay, that's
so
right there.
Yeah, this was some of the detail. I think it's maybe a canopy frame here. Right. And the roundels, right? The Macross kite.
And we'll take some pictures for close-ups, yeah.
These look pretty good. They look very crisp.
Yeah. Okay.
Thin. Now, again, these are probably vintage, for sure, vintage decals, and we'll see how they work out.
Cool. Okay, now you can say we're going to pause for a bit.
We'll pause. We'll be right back. Okay, so we're going to have a look at the manual for this... it's a Retpu kit.
Gesundheit.
Yes. Yeah.
Is there like a translation for what that means?
It means something.
Well,
absolutely. I do not know.
Because you have some Japanese knowledge.
Yeah, I don't know where that comes from. Okay. And I think that company even has like a longer name. And I hope that we're going to have a discussion about that in the future.
Okay.
So something to look forward to in a different part.
All right.
So anyway, this is the manual. This is printed from Macross World, where they have a sort of a catalog or an archive of like various kit manuals.
So it's a bit like ScaleMates.
Oh yeah,
in some ways, but all the Macross. Very cool.
Absolutely, it's a really awesome site. I do recommend it, and certainly there's lots of cool model stuff going on there. So you have a look. This kit is, I gotta say, the client actually did a lot of work on it to get it built. Like, look at the parts count.
Well, it looks great. Like we saw it when you first unboxed it. It looked fabulous.
Yeah, he did a lot of work on it. He did a lot of the construction work, and there's just a fantastic amount of parts in this kit. And just wait till we get to some of the instructions here. So you can look at these on your computer at home.
And we're gonna provide the link. Yes, so you can follow along at home.
Yeah, some of the joints we're talking about here, like This is obviously the foot assembly, the leg assembly,
Right.
the canards, or those wing, this is the wing, the swept wings, right? And then the thruster, right? And then that kind of, so in your jet design, you have your turbine would sit in here, right? But for this model, this is the arm and shoulder.
Well, and what you were saying is, because you've got to remember, because it does articulate. It's not just putting two halves together. So you've got to put the stuff in the ball joints and stuff like that.
And these type of kits, and this is sort of the same of other mecha designs too. They often use a lot of like double jointed, right? So it can move like an elbow and
I see some similarities with the one Gundam I've
that you built.
Shaitarn. Who's on first? What's on second?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to annoy all the Gundam guys by the end of this, aren't I?
Shaitarn,
All right.
Classic.
It was a great kit.
Yeah. So, and that, you know what? Interesting that was another early 90s Bondi kit.
Yeah.
So kind of a contemporary of this.
Yeah,
but this is very garage.
This is very garage.
Yeah, and I see the difference. $200.
Wow.
At the time.
Right.
And a very limited run kind of thing. But maybe we can get more into that later. But we'll have a look at another page. There's a little 5 or 6.
Oh, that one's upside down, my friend. That's all right. The last two are upside down.
Let's flip them.
That's all right. See, that's just we're making sure people are on their toes.
Yes. Okay, so we have, this is the assembly. Interesting. I did mention it was a multimedia kit. I believe that the canopy was vacuum form, and this is probably what it looked like, and you needed to cut it out.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah.
And there's a figure pilot. So this is 1/100. That's pretty small.
Yeah, it's pretty tiny.
To see a cockpit, right? Like imagine 70 seconds actually getting harder to see for most.
So you're not going to assemble full LEDs with lights and everything in the same
Not on this build.
Not on this one? Okay. Just wondering.
But that's going to be a challenge. I don't know how to polish that canopy up and make it's sort of a hazy
Well,
color.
It seems to be, there's this thing called the internet. And
I'm going to have to do research on that.
Yeah, because I've heard people using everything from toothpaste to finer grits to, and I'm sure some of our viewers can offer some advice as well.
Yep. I might be reaching out for sure.
Very cool.
So, and here you have kind of, this is like the head is up here.
Right.
So it has like on occasion, these were laser guns.
Okay.
Right, like a laser turret on the head.
Right.
And then the head is basically a sensor suite. Right? There's like the person.
The pilot's inside the chest.
The cockpit slides inside the chest when it transforms into the in Gerwalk it looks like a fighter jet with legs.
Right.
But in the Bactroid it sort of changes rotation.
The pilot rotates his orientation.
But he's still sitting in the cockpit.
Chest,
yeah. And then you get down to sort of, I don't know, like the abdomen, I guess, or the midsection. And wow, that looks really complicated.
It's a good challenge for you.
I think I'm going to go to a snap kit after this.
There you go.
So then you get down to this. They're talking. Now you have a diagram where they're showing kind of this is like a profile. So here's the nose, the cockpit, and it's showing you some of the actions to do the transformation. Right. So here,
fascinating.
Yeah, actually, interesting. I think the cockpit would be actually still oriented like a jet. Sometimes it would be oriented almost that way,
right?
Get tucked inside, and then this one is a little bit different design, right? Because it's the next generation. And then they're talking about just some there's the
canopy.
Say not the canopy, but that's the little aileron and that's the gear. That's the gear door.
Gear door, right?
The gear doors on the leg and
for the leg. Yep, you're right. Yes.
And this is very interesting. I think it's referencing. Like the fast packs. So this particular mecha had these like mission specific packs. It's just like the whole Valkyrie series, right? So it would be a weapons pod, a sensor pod, or like
different things you could add.
Yeah, or like a thruster pod.
Yeah.
So I wonder if there was something made that.
Well, maybe, or it almost looks like this is showing the sub-assembly, and then you see the arrow.
Yeah.
It goes in as part of the gear. It could be either.
I'm not sure if they're referencing just that part of the leg, or if there's some other.
My Japanese is far worse than yours, particularly written.
Yes.
I should say the inevitable joke. It's all gibberish to me, but that would probably not be.
Okay, so we're going to rotate it.
Let's rotate that around. I'm going to zoom out a little bit.
Yeah. So they've provided and this is quite common, right? They've given a diagram that shows you the transformation process for the model.
Okay.
And what's interesting too to note is that like when you're seeing these things in an animation, sometimes it does not conform to how a physical model rendition would
in real life.
It's very rare.
The magic transform.
Yeah, it's very rare that you would get a kit that transforms the way they show you in that animation magic, right? But and you've had kits too where it's really fun. I remember the classic 80s Zeta Gundam kit,
right,
where the shield is kind of it kind of goes from like a mecha form into a jet form essentially, right? Or like a space fighter, I suppose it would be. And they call it Wave Rider mode. And it has this nose cone piece that it was a transforming kit, right? In 1990 they engineered this thing, but you had to take it off and then stick it on. But of course you watch the show and the mechanics of it are like fluid and it's all connected still, and it just would fold into the correct forms and you'd see all the mechanical action happen.
It makes perfect sense.
Yeah, but it's a bit different, the reality. But this is still quite. Okay. So we go through that, and oh boy, I'm gonna have to study this a little bit to make sure we hopefully we can at the end of this project photograph it in all 3 modes.
And we'll make it transform, and we'll hopefully not hear a crunching sound.
No crunching sound.
No gears going together. And then last but not least, it's the last page, I think.
Yeah. See, and here I think this I believe.
It's your fastbacks.
Yeah, interesting. I wonder if they were referencing sometimes too when you get into the resin, the garage kit world, they often say, for this, get this part from an existing mass-produced kit and add it in, right? Okay. If you want the fast packs, you can get, because Bandai put out around this time that like Macross 7 came out that was a full TV show with 50 episodes or so.
Oh, wow.
In 1994. So there was a whole series of kits. From Bandai, and they did transforming kits, they did static kits, and they did 1/100, some 1/72nd. There were vinyl kits by other makers. And I think it was a fairly successful show in Japan. Okay. And it obviously has some following outside of that as well. But I wonder if they're saying, here, you can go get these pieces from another kit.
Could be.
And add it onto this to get that next variant.
You know what we'll have to do? We'll have to maybe, once we're off camera, I've got an app on my phone. We'll see if we can get some of the Japanese characters to translate.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, that'd be cool.
They have technology that does that now.
And it's quite interesting. If you go to ScaleMates, you can find this resin kit, and you can find all the Bandai kits, and you can see sort of the parts history, right?
Right.
So it's all in there. It's very fascinating. Cool. And here, I think they're just showing you different. I think they're giving you tips, right? They're showing you like cutting off, like that's like a common PVC joint, right? Where a peg would go through here and it would connect in, and then it would swivel, right? Like this.
They're showing you how to do it.
Yeah, and they're maybe showing you how to make other like fit, like trimming it off, or. And then here they're just like they're showing you to
1 millimeter
put a pin in, right?
Of 1 millimeter.
Yeah, add a pin. I'm not sure if they're provided, or you were to find your own 1 millimeter diameter pin and add it in to connect
small.
the pieces. And that looks like that's the intake on the
intake for the wing root.
Yeah, and
this is part of the wing.
That's the wing root, and then the swept wing was over here, right?
To help give it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Well, and you were saying earlier, you have to pin this sort of stuff,
especially to hold its form. So we're going to work on. I'm really going to focus on trying to get it when it transforms. It sort of connects together and keeps its airframe shape without flopping.
Right.
And I think honestly that's going to be the biggest challenge of this particular project. But I will get it done.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right.
So that's the end of part 2 of our special in-depth report here on the Scale Model Podcast, building a resin transformable model. And I hope that if you will enjoy Macross, you will enjoy this. And if you're just curious about resin, we're going to go through some best practices, and you can hopefully see some of that unfold and just take a little bit of the mystery away while we examine this super rare and interesting getting a model kit.
Exactly. And as always, we're making this available several weeks in advance for our Patreon supporters. And we thank you very much. And if you think you've got colleagues in that might want to see them, make sure they check us out at scalemodelpodcast.com for the regular podcast every 2 weeks, where we talk about not only Gundams, but all things modeling and hobby and all sorts of stuff.
Armor,
like
airplanes,
you name it,
all
we
things
talk
that
about.
go.
We occasionally rant and rave, and we generally have a good time until our feline producer, Mr. Sparkles,
cuts us off. You're out of here.
All right, so that's it for this time. So for Anthony, I'm Stuart Clark. Thank you, and be well.